Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. A lot of physique updates to talk about in today's video. Let's start with physique updates from two guys that are both switching categories, Keone Pearson and Bryan Jones. Bryan Jones is switching from Classic to Open. Keone switched from Classic to 212. Now he's going back to Classic. And this is the first physique update that we've seen from Keone since he announced that he's going back to Classic from 212. These four photos right here after training with Martin Fitzwater, who is another guy that made the switch. He moved up from Classic to Open. Now, as far as Keone goes, what are we looking for from Keone's physique specifically when we see an update from him? Really, we're not looking for him to put on size because he can't. He's moving back down to Classic physique, and when we say down, we're talking about from a weight standpoint. He cannot weigh nearly as much as he can weigh in 212 as he can in Classic. So he's got that weight cut off. So we're not looking for Keone to look bigger in the offseason, to really necessarily even have more muscle in the offseason. I would say really the only flaw in Keone Pearson up until this point has been his conditioning. I think he definitely had the size when he put it on for 212. I think he was competitive from a size standpoint. Obviously, it goes without saying that he's got the structure for both divisions. He's got a fantastic structure, very similar to Derek Lunsford, who just won the 212 Mr. Olympia, and he's got a great structure for Classic. Posing is phenomenal. Conditioning has really been the only thing that was pretty inconsistent with Keone. So when he switches back to Classic, maybe that weight cutoff being lower will help him dial it in a little bit more. I believe he said in the past that there's a chance that we'll see him compete in 2022, but really, as far as off-season pictures go, we can't really tell much from them, other than it looks like he's still on his grind. But really, all I'm looking for from Keone at this point is the next time he steps on stage, sharper conditioning. Now, another guy that posted a lot of physique updates, actually these are directly from his coach, Cuban Flex, Bryan Jones. Pretty successful in Classic physique, and then this year he had kind of a similar issue as Keone. The conditioning was lacking for Bryan Jones. Bryan certainly appeared to be one of the more heavily muscled guys when he was competing in Classic in most of the lineups that he did. But like I said, his conditioning suffered a little bit, especially this past year, and maybe that has to do with trying to make weight for his weight cap there. But look, honestly, his switch to open bodybuilding is one of the bigger, transitions that I'm excited to see. He's got a physique to me that's very reminiscent of a younger, more primed version of Cedric McMillan. Cedric McMillan is a perfect example of a taller bodybuilder like Bryan Jones with a more aesthetic physique that did really well, especially in his prime, in the men's open category. And I think we could see something similar with Bryan Jones, and I guess we're going to find out at his first show, whenever that is. I believe he also intends to compete this year in 2022, making his open debut, and we've seen some very successful transitions to open as far as open debuts are concerned, like we saw with Sean Clarita coming from 212 and winning that Legion Sports Festival. But honestly, I think Bryan is going to do great as a men's open bodybuilder, and you guys might agree with this. My only criticism of him, really, the biggest glaring criticism, I would say, would be to bring up the lower body as far as open bodybuilding is concerned. I think his legs were good for Classic, but I think that's going to be something he has to step up for men's open bodybuilding, and I think you guys would probably agree. That's one thing that Cedric really brought, especially in his prime, was pretty big legs with that aesthetic physique. And when you already have a really good structure like Bryan has, and you've got a really small waist, great V-taper, it's even further accentuated when you have really big legs, and I think that's going to, add something kind of a wow factor to his physique. But honestly, this is a guy that I cannot wait to see on a men's open stage. Crossovers from division to division are almost always exciting. At least the past couple that we've seen have been really exciting. And just like Keone, who we just talked about, when he switched from Classic to 212, he won both 212 shows that he did back-to-back. Sean Clarita, when he switched from 212 to Open, he won the first Open show that he did. Could we see something similar with Bryan Jones, his first Open show? Could he be, a runaway winner and be like a skyrocket shooting star in the IFBB as an open class competitor? Possibly. And speaking of something different, the Arnold Classic bringing you the pay-per-view this year in collaboration with Fanmio. Now, next up in the news, let's get to some Arnold Classic competitor physique updates, starting with Brett Wilkin. Now, I know this update was a couple days ago, but I found it very impressive. He shows here, this is like a side transition pose. I always think it's interesting how they refer to these poses as the relaxed poses, even though nobody's relaxing, everybody's flexing. Front relaxed, side relaxed, all that good stuff. But anyway, he's showing the comparison here between the Chicago Pro prep and the Arnold Classic prep. So he's saying 13 days out from the Chicago Pro is the picture on the left where he looks smaller. He says that was taken July 9th, 2021. And look, the reason why that's important is because that's kind of the show. That's the reason why we're making a case for Brett Wilkin being a wild card in this Arnold Classic lineup. He took a close second to Hunter Labrada at that Chicago Pro, and Hunter Labrada went on to place 4th at the 2021 Olympia. So the argument is, if he's that close to Hunter Labrada's physique, could he be dangerous compared to a lot of these top pros that are in the Arnold lineup this year? So he weighs 248, 13 days out from the Chicago Pro, and he weighs 263 about 6 weeks out from the Arnold Classic. This was taken January 17th, 2022. And I think the obvious comparison here is that even though the body fat percentage looks pretty similar between the two, to be honest, he looks significantly bigger in the photo prepping for the Arnold Classic on the right-hand side. So arguably, if he's improved from Chicago Pro, and at Chicago he was close to Hunter Labrada status, if we see a bigger version of Brett at the Arnold with similar conditioning to what we saw at the Chicago Pro, because I think that was really one of the big selling points of his physique in Chicago, was how ripped he was. I think he's going to be a very dangerous competitor at the Arnold that people might be counting out. And I'm not necessarily talking about for the win here. I'm talking about potential top 6 placing, because I think that's what most people are going to be battling for. Make no mistake about it, I really think this is going to be Brandon Curry's show to lose. I think he's going to win. I think Brandon is going to walk away with this title, that's just how I think it's going to go. Crazy lineup, crazy competitive, but I really think that this is Brandon's show. So not to take anything away from the other competitors, but I think Brandon's got it, and everybody else is going to be fighting for who's going to place highest in that top 6. And like I said, there's some really big names in this lineup that you might see place lower or place outside of the top 6 unexpectedly, and that's going to be one of the things to watch. With these newcomers like Brett Wilkin moving up, potentially in the process of moving up, are going to be kicking back some of the more well-established names. Now, another guy in that lineup that I think has a similar chance of being a top 6 guy at this year's Arnold is Samson Dauda. He's going into this show after a pro win. That is tremendous momentum. He just won the Prague Pro, where he beat the likes of Nathan Diasha, Regan Grimes, and Rafael Brandao, all who are other names in this lineup. And as you can see from this video, Samson is a guy that brings that aesthetic element to men's open bodybuilding. He's proven that he's got the size to hang with the big boys in open, but he brings that small waist, he brings a vacuum pose, and when he brings that conditioning, that really competitive conditioning, he is a threat. He almost beat Nathan at the the Arnold Classic UK. He almost beat him there. It was a very close decision there. Then he ended up beating him in Prague, and Nathan has won 3 shows going into the Arnold Classic. So Nathan arguably is he's definitely one of the favorites going into this show. But here's a guy, Samson, that beat Nathan most recently. So you cannot count Samson out. And the interesting thing about all these guys that I'm talking about as potential wild cards is we haven't seen them in a lineup like this either at all or in a while. And in a lineup like this, I mean top Olympians, Olympia champions, Arnold Classic champions, Brandon Curry's, William Bonac's, Cedric McMillan's, established big names. We haven't seen some of these newer guys in terms of success and newer guys in terms of age go up against some of these guys yet. Now, the final topic that I wanted to touch on in today's video, Kai Greene, did he downsize or not? Kai Greene, in some of the recent posts, he looks big again. So the question is really, who knows which of these posts are recent or not? The videos that he posted with Power Tech, are they old? Are they new? The videos that he's posting now where he still looks huge, are they old videos where he looks huge? Regardless of what the case is, the fact remains the same. Kai Greene is in his late 40s. Last year, I was told by people close to Kai, mutual friends that I have with Kai, that Kai was weighing close to 315 pounds. That was like his walk-around weight in the gym. Now, I'm told by people close to Kai right now that Kai is closer to 290. So if that's true, that would mean he's down about 25 pounds. in the last, I guess it's been about 6 months since I was told that he weighed 315, which is significant. Does Kai still look big in these recent videos? Yes. But I guess the point is, do you think Kai still needs to look big? I was watching a video that Greg Doucette did on the topic. I was watching part of his video, and he was saying, you know, we shouldn't be criticizing Kai. If he is looking small, he's still way bigger than the average person, and if he is looking small, potentially he's doing it for health. He's taking time off, and I agree 100% with Greg. The point of this is not to criticize Kai and say, ooh, look at Kai, he's small. The point of this is to congratulate Kai and encourage him if he is downsizing, because I personally think at this point, that's what he should be doing. And by downsizing, I think people have put kind of a negative spin on that when a bodybuilder downsizes. I think we need to normalize getting smaller, getting off gear, maybe, you know, backing off the food, maybe backing off the intensity, whatever it is when you get to a certain age. I think the negative stigma associated with that should be removed. So if those Power Tech videos where Kai was looking smaller are the most recent videos, I think that is a good thing. I think Kai should look downsized. He shouldn't be as worried about, you know, walking around at 300 plus pounds. He's in his late 40s. He hasn't competed in an Olympia since 2014. That's 8 years. He hasn't competed on a pro stage since 2016. That's 6 years. I don't think Kai is ever going to compete again. I don't think he ever needs to compete again. I think he's kind of cemented his legacy as a bodybuilder. And I think the bottom line here is whether he's downsizing or not, I think he should be. He's 46, going on 47. If he did come back and do the Olympia, at this point, I don't think he would win. And I think the only point in Kai coming back to competition at this stage in his life would be to win an Olympia title, which, you know, some would argue he's going to go down as an uncrowned Mr. Olympia. And if he thought he could do that realistically, compete again and win the title, that would be the only reason to check that box off of his list, finally getting an Olympia title. But I honestly think it's past that point. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think Kai is really downsizing or not? Do you think it matters? Do you think he should downsize or not? Do you think Kai will ever take the stage again? I do not. I don't think the conversation of is Kai Greene going to compete is ever going to be a real conversation ever again. Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you did in fact enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And in addition to subscribing, click that bell notification icon to be notified every time I post an upload. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out.